Hello! Welcome to using Mastery Pathways in Canvas to create differentiated learning. My name is Heather Hall. I am a Ball State alumni. I've been teaching for Elkhart Community Schools for going on 10 years now. I work at Westside Middle School. I'm a tech ambassador, and I'm a certified Apple teacher. I presented at EdTech in the Bend in 2019, and I presented in my first webinar this fall. So today we're going to learn about Mastery Pathways and how we can use them in our classrooms to be able to gear up differentiated learning so all students can learn. So let's get started. Today I want to introduce to you what a Mastery Path is. I want to take a close look at a Mastery Path with you. I want to walk you through how to make your own and share tips and tricks with you, and then provide time for question and answer. So let's get started. A Mastery Path is a tool provided within Canvas that allows instructors as ourselves to easily create differentiated learning while ensuring that all individuals know the content. This is extremely crucial, especially since we are starting to delve into PLC groups, and this will help make your PLC time even more meaningful. How does it work? Well, to begin using a Mastery Path, all you have to do is turn the feature on inside your course and then build your module to fit it. To enable Mastery Paths, we have to go into our course. So I'm using the sample course so that you can see what it looks like. I'm opening up my class. Once I'm here, I'm navigating to Settings. Inside settings, usually it pops up at Course Details. We want to be on Feature Options. Now that we're here, we see it says Mastery Paths. And if you want to know more about it, you can click here. Click on the red X so that you can enable Mastery Paths. So I create what I call the sorting hat, which is a formative assessment. And this sorting is based off the student's performance. It then takes them down one of three paths: an intermediate, a beginner, or an advanced route. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So in the beginning, this is a screenshot from my Canvas. This is my module. This is the entire thing right here. Students don't see all of this. They only see their exact path. So when a student takes their basic notes, which I begin every one of my Mastery Paths with some basic notes and note taking. So they have a vocab chart they fill in from their notes. Then they take a quiz. Once they take their quiz, it'll take them down one of three paths. My paths look like this when I set it up inside Canvas, and I'll show you how in a few minutes. My beginner path takes them down a review activity where they're reading, and then I ask them to retest. My second path is a little bit less in depth. It takes them through a couple videos, some activity, and then I ask them to retest. And then my last path is where my final dumping spot is, and where I want all students to end up. I want all to get to the end point. So if you scored between a 0 and a 5 on my quiz, this is the path that it will take you down. They take their pretest after we've done our notes in class. Then they would complete the review activity, retake the quiz, and then they will dump into the final category project. If it was an intermediate person, so they scored between a 6 and an 8, this student takes the pretest, they take my intermediate intervention activity, and then they retake the test, and then they end up in the final project. And if they were my top-notch students who score between 9 and 11 points, they just end up being dumped straight into the project. These are typically your honor students, and be prepared to let them back into the quiz so they can retake it as well, because they're typically the ones who want to have that 11 out of 11 for perfection, because that's who they are. And by all means, we should be willing to allow all of our students to grow and remaster the content. So be willing to let them back in. My end result looks like this. I ask my students to put forth great efforts to create a deep space drawing to bring their viewer into their space. So we really activate the picture plane and we create 1-point perspective drawings. This takes time. So my students who end up in Path 1 or Path 2 may not get it finished and may need extra time to get the project finished, and I allow that to happen. But once most of us are pretty much done, we move on to our next segment. which is why pacing is important. Building your mastery path, it's just 5 simple steps. First, you create a module. Then you create an assessment tool, whether that be an auto grade tool or one that you grade yourself. Then you need to decide what a low, mid, and a high performing student would need to complete to be proficient. Build each one of those tasks and assign them inside your module before you set up your mastery path. Create a retake so that you can ensure a student has mastered the material, and then double check that every one of your assignments is assigned to the mastery path, not to everyone, and has a due date. The only assignment that gets assigned to everyone is the initial sorting hat. Let's walk through how to set up your path. To create our mastery path, we're going to go into our course. We're going to go to settings, turn it on. We're going to be in our feature options, and we see it says mastery paths. We're going to click the red X and enable mastery paths. Now we're going to go to modules. Mastery paths work from a module, so we have to create a new module. So we're going to click add module. I'm going to name mine mastery path demo. Now that I have my mastery path demo module set up, I'm ready to add my assignments to it. So I always begin my mastery path units by teaching my students with some basic notes. So I'm going to call that mastery path notes. And now I'm going to have them take a quiz to show me that they understand what they're doing. It'll be a new quiz, and I'm just going to call it Mastery Path Quiz. Now I need to create the first path that they will go down, so I need to set up an assignment space for that. I'm just going to call it Path 1. You can create it whatever name you want to call it. I need to create Path 2. And again, you can create it whatever you want to call your assignment. It can be revised, whatever your unit's name is. And I need to create my finale. Alright, so now I have my basic notes, the sorting hat, Path 1, Path 2, and Path 3. I need my retake quiz so that I can help guide my students along the way. So we're going to go inside and build up our quiz. So inside my quiz, I'm going to say, this is the beginning of our mastery path unit. Answer the questions honestly and completely. Submit and click next when finished. Complete the assigned task. And I want it to be a graded quiz. I don't want the students to be able to see the correct answers. I'm going to require an access code just so they can't get in ahead of time, and call it mastery. And I'm going to give it a due date. And because it's the beginning of the unit, I'm going to make my due date March 2nd. So this is like the initial part of the whole mastery path. Build your questions like you normally would, and then hit save. So now we are ready to create our retake quiz. Our retake quiz will use the same questions from our mastery path quiz. So we're going to tell it quiz, new quiz. We're going to call it retake mastery path quiz. And that's going to come up in between my paths and the finale. So now I'm going to open back up my mastery path quiz, and inside here I'm going to tell it what the paths are. So I clicked on mastery paths tab. My path 1 will be students who score 0 through 39 points. Those students need severe remediation, so they're going to get the path 1 assignment, and then they're going to get the retake quiz. This group here is path 2. They're the middle of the line. They're going to get path 2's assignment, and they're going to get the retake mastery path quiz. And then path 3 is the finale. they're the students who earned the right to the final assignment. When I'm in here, I can click more than one assignment. Like I could click 3 of them if I wanted, and I can tell it to be ORs by clicking in that middle button. Or if like, oh, that's not what I wanted, I can tell it to be removed from my path. So I want the students to take Path 2 and the retake quiz. I don't want it to be a choice. I want them to take it. And I'm going to change my 70 points up here to be an 80, because I feel like if you've earned a B, you know the material pretty well. And so that can be considered proficient knowledge, whereas 70% is average. I think there's a little bit more that can be learned. So I'm going to save and publish. Now, this has become a mastery path. Over here will be the breakdown where students' names will fall as they've been assigned their path. I'm going to go back to modules, and I need to set up my retake quiz. Before we set up the retake quiz, we need to create a page that says "Come See Me." We're going to use this Come See Me page for students to be assigned it. That way when they retake the quiz and don't do so well, they're told to come see me. That way your students can talk with you and you can help them identify what's going on. Maybe they're not paying attention to their quiz. Maybe they're not understanding the material. The trick with the Come See Me page is you have to edit it to tell it to be in the Mastery Path. So now that we have Mastery Paths turned on, we have this Allow It in Mastery Path buttons to be here, and we're going to tell it to save and to publish the page. Now I can go into my modules, go to the retake quiz, and I can set up those paths. So I'm going to click on my mastery path. 0 to 39 is going to get that page. Come see me. If they scored in the middle, they're going to get reverted back to path 2 for a little bit more review. And if they scored 70 or higher, they earned their right to start the project. Save and publish. Now you'll see right here there's a new breakdown path for the pass for the retake quiz. So as students progress to the retake quiz, they'll either fall in path 1, 2, or 3. Our goal is to get them all to path 3. That's what we want. Now that we have created our Mastery Path quizzes, we need to come into path 1, and we need to make sure that this says Mastery Path, not everyone. So this assignment would be built just like you normally would build whatever your assignment would be, keeping in mind that it's for those kids that need to be retaught. And instead of choosing everyone, I choose Mastery Path. And now only kids who are assigned this based off their test score will be assigned the path, and I'm going to set my due date for March 5th. And I click Save. Now let's go back to modules and do that for path 2 and then for finale. So path 2, again we're going to edit. We need to change the assign to be Mastery Paths, and we'll make it the same due date, March 5th, and save. And then back to modules. Click on the finale, edit, change that from being everyone to being Mastery Path. We're going to extend this one out because it's the final project. Let me get the 12. Give them time to get it done. And then we need to go to the retake quiz and make sure it's also assigned as Mastery Path, because they only take the retake quiz if they were assigned it through the Mastery Path. So edit. Make sure I turn off the questions because I don't want them to see the correct answers. Shuffle the answers. Turn off everyone. Click Mastery Paths. Give it the due date of March 5th. And save. So going back to the modules, you can see we have our initial notes. We have our Mastery Path quiz set up, and you know it's got the Mastery Paths going. It has a link right here. Path 1 with its grouping, Path 2 It says multiple because it's attached to the retake quiz and to the initial quiz. Finale is also multiple because it's attached to the retake quiz and to the initial quiz. And then Come See Me is linked to the point values. So now you're ready to publish your module and have your students take off on their mastery path. Congratulations, you made your first mastery path. When you're in student view, all your student will see of your mastery path is the initial instruction, your sorting hat, and then everything else is locked until they've been released into it. So let's take a look at what that looks like. When I open up my initial instruction, I like to begin with some basic notes over the concept so that everybody has fair playing ground. Once they've completed that, we take a quiz. The quiz is my sorting hat, and it will take my students on through the rest of my path. So I'm going to purposely bomb this quiz so that you can see what it looks like if I scored a 0. That I got a 0.5 out of 11. When I scroll down to the bottom and I click next, it takes me onto my next activity, which is now my teacher wants me to review proportion and unity and then retake the quiz. So when I come through here, I am assigned my assignment. Once I complete this assignment, I click next. Now I'm allowed to retake the quiz. Now that I have completed the activity, I am retaking the quiz so I can show my teacher that I do understand. So this time I'm not going to bomb the quiz. So now I got a perfect score. When I scroll down to the bottom, it'll take me onto my next part of the path. Now I've been released to the final part of the path and I'm allowed to complete the key project. That was if I bombed the test, took the retake, and then I went back on through after my remediation. Let's reset student view and let's try it again so you can see what it looks like going down the second path. Again, my stuff is locked until I get there, so I'm going to go to my quiz. I'm going to take my quiz. This time I'm not going to do as bad on the quiz. So I got a 5 on my quiz, which will take me to the second tier on my path. So this will take me down path 2. Now that I clicked next, it automatically took me to the assignment my teacher wanted me to take. I'm going to review the material as my teacher wants me to do, and once it's completed, I can click next and retake the quiz. And again, once I'm done retaking the quiz, it will take me back to the key assignment if I've passed the quiz. If I don't pass the quiz, then it's going to take me back to the to the next activity to help me remediate again. So now I've retaken the quiz. After remediation, I get a perfect score. I click back down here on my next button and it's going to take me onto my final path. So I too have reached this key project, same as the student who went down path 1. Now if I reset again, module is set back up to the beginning. I'm going to take the quiz again, and this time I'm going to ace it on the first try. So after my notes, I can demonstrate for my teacher that I know what I'm doing, and when I click on next, it takes me straight to the key project. And that's what it looks like for a mastery path in student view. That's what your students will see, and depending on the path they go down, that's the route they'll have to take to get to where you want them to go. I'm going to show you my Deep Space Mastery Path unit so that you can see it from beginning to end. When I begin my Mastery Path units, I have initial instructions that I give all my children. And this is to help me understand where everybody is when it's all said and done. So I begin with basic notes. After my notes, I ask my students to take a quiz, and this is what my quiz looks like. I give them questions with definitions, I give them fill in the blanks, I give them multiple drop downs, pictures, different ways to tell me what they know. So I have multiple different avenues for it. And then I create my different paths. So if a student were to bomb the quiz, I want to know to give them a remediation task. So I'm going to ask them to do a small reading assignment and to complete a worksheet for me. And I link all of those things inside the assignment. When I made the read aloud, because it was this text here, this is just me reading the textbook, and it's just a blank reading. So it looks like this. It's just YouTube. That way they can follow along as they go. It's just a black screen the entire time, so they can read along with me in case they didn't want to read. If you click on the digital selection from the book, it just takes them to a Google Doc, and then I give them the worksheet as well. So if they were to end up down path 2, I ask myself, if a student just kind of knows the material, what kind of help do I think they need? And I provide that kind of assignment here. So I gave them flashcards, and then I gave them some videos to take notes over, to get a little bit further instruction over the 3 terms, and then I give them a chance again. And if for some reason the student bombs it again, it pops them into a window that says, come see me. They had to retake the quiz, and it's the same quiz. I just duplicate it. And then I have my final project where I want everybody to get, and this is a pretty in-depth project. So students who end up getting here late will end up turning it in incomplete and will be given the chance to complete it later on. And a student who finishes pretty late getting here, are encouraged to do one of the easier portions of the choice board. So this is a deep space project where I have my kids drawing from 1-point perspective, and I give them full choice on what kind of 1-point perspective drawing they want to do. They can choose to do a city, a room, or even objects that recede into space. So that way all levels are being adapted for and accounted for. And that is my Mastery Path unit. And I'm going to go back to the main Mastery Path so that you can see what it looked like when kids took it. I can see the breakdown of who ended up where and when, which is very powerful for those PLC meetings and conversations. So under my first path, which is that rereading and applying on better notes just to get some better understanding of the knowledge, I had 26 of 128 students end up there. On my second path, where students would watch and play with the vocab cards and do a couple of fun activities, I had 32 of 128 in there initially, and then my final path, 52 of the 128 ended up here immediately. And that meant that they scored an 8 out of 11, which was a B. And typically those kids are my honors kids and they want to retake the quiz again, and I do allow that so they can get a better score. But they get to have the rights to be able to go straight to the assignment. The cool thing is when I'm in here, I can click on the name or the link, and it tells me the names of the kids who scored there. And if I click on their name again, it will tell me what they scored what on, so I can see how they're doing as they're going down the path. And I can directly message them if I wanted to. So I could also click on the link and take me to their submission. It's very powerful for those PLC conversations. It'll be right here, inside the sorting hat. And if I want to see how they did on the retake quiz, I can click on it. And again, their sorting hat will be right here. And once there's kids here, their names will pop down. You have successfully created your first Mastery Path module. Give yourself a pat on the back. Here's what it looks like when you're looking at the student view. Before I introduce my Mastery Paths to my students, I take a moment to explain to them that we are all unique learners and that Mastery Path is set to ensure that we all end with our cup full no matter where we began. So some of us might be on one activity and some on another, and I encourage them to not freak out, but to ask questions versus be panicked, because I want us to all end with our cup being full, and that it's okay if somebody has to end up doing this task to get to this task first, and that that's all part of the learning process. It's all about how you explain the Mastery Path process that makes it okay in your classroom and helps that environment flow. Here's a look at the Mastery Path in student view. Here are a couple tips and tricks to help you keep the pulse on your class and to help maintain your sanity. These are things I learned the hard way through doing. So first and foremost, keep a checklist of your students nearby on a clipboard with highlighters. I use a red, which is like pink. I use a yellow and a green highlighter so that I can keep track of my students. My green is my proficient, My yellow is my mediocre, and my pink is typically my very far down in the chain, like, hey, they need a lot of help, so I will touch base with those students a lot. You must encourage your students to use the web browser, whether that be Safari or Google Chrome. They work way better at resetting your module than the app. So please make sure that your student is inside the web browser and they will click the next button at the bottom. You will say on repeat like a broken record, refresh your page and click next. Refresh your page and click next. So it'll constantly, like, they need to be at their module page and refresh the screen, and then their path will appear. Sometimes, and it's very rare, it's not been a whole lot of times, but sometimes my path will glitch and I have to be ready to type the kid's name in to help keep my class flowing. So I encourage you to keep the scores nearby your computer screen with your different pathways pulled up, so that way as soon as a student gets their score, if it doesn't push them through after like 5 refreshing, be ready to type their name in under the assign to spot so that they can keep moving down their path. Canvas should add these students directly to the buckets that are being assigned to them. And when I say bucket, I mean that second turn-in spot where you can assign additional students at the bottom. If they don't, if it does not do that for you, be ready to add them in. And at the same time, Canvas does not exactly add all of these different assignment scores to PowerSchool for you, because it's not being assigned to the whole course, it's just being assigned to individual students. So if you wanted those scores to be effective inside their final grade, you need to manually enter those scores. These were some tips I thought I would share because I found them out the hard way. Now that we have viewed Mastery Path in student view and teacher view, what questions do you have for me? Let's take some time to answer those questions now.